and welcome to the Millennial Revolt, an independent political talk show that seeks to bring a different narrative than the stale one we have going on right now in the mainstream media. So today we are going to be talking about this second presidential debate. And the first thing I would like to say before I get into my debate analysis is we have two more presidential candidates who are running. Dr. Jill Stein of the Green Party and Gary Johnson of the Libertarian Party. And I think it does a complete disservice to the American people that we aren't allowed to hear their voices and their ideas on how they can move the country forward. Now, you may or may not disagree with them. We don't agree with every single policy idea that the candidates who we do support put forward. But I think the American people have the right to know who they can vote for, and they should be allowed to see each and every single presidential candidate who is on the ballot. Now, that's all I wanted to say on that, because as I've made this clear before, I'm not voting for Donald Trump, and I am not voting for Hillary Clinton. So I've made this pretty clear on my channel, and I just want to state this again. I'm voting for Dr. Jill Stein. So tonight's debate was kind of all over the place. I felt that the moderators had lost control multiple times in the debate. I felt that the moderators were slightly biased in some of their questions toward Trump. And I truly think just because you do see the media trying to tip the election in Hillary Clinton's favor, that they should have people who are unknown from smaller network affiliated channels to maybe run these debates, because I think it would just at least give the appearance of being fair, because I feel in this debate it was just very blatantly obvious that it was really 3-on-1. Now, that being said, it was just a crap show at times. There was just so much mudslinging and just so much just bad blood between both of the two candidates, and you can see why. It was very obvious. Trump had his tapes that were released where he said completely derogatory and inappropriate things, and Hillary Clinton just had the Podesta email leaks from WikiLeaks, which just showed her saying completely different things from what she's saying on the campaign trail versus what she said in her speeches to the CEOs. Now, she said in the WikiLeaks emails that she has both a public-private policy and a private policy, and that she is disconnected from the American people given the fact that she has made a lot of money. So I think both of these candidates took in a lot of heat coming into this debate. I think Donald Trump a little bit more than Hillary Clinton, but I think both of them were probably pretty much damaged going into this debate. Now, to start off, I don't think it should have been brought up, the question about these tapes, because I think when you start opening the debate like that, it just sets the tone for where this whole debate was going. And I think that is completely the moderator's fault. I think it was just disgusting that we started that off that way. I think the American people care more about policy than they do about Trump on some tape saying grab a woman's pussy. Now, you may agree with him or you may not agree with him what he said. I completely don't. But I think we should have just stuck to the issues. And the moderators have to set the tone for where it's going. So on that point, they are completely at fault. The way the debate just collapsed into name calling and a bunch of just silliness until both candidates tried to get back on point in certain times. So it also should be noted that there were protests at the second debate. Now, there were protests against Hillary Clinton from Donald Trump supporters, and there were Jill Stein supporters who were protesting the debate in an effort to open the debate, to expand it, to get more voices out there. So I completely support that. I think the American people should have the right to know who they can and vote for. So I just wanted to let you guys know that was also happening at the debate, and I will have a link in the description where you can check that video out for yourselves. Before the debate even began, Donald Trump set up a press conference with Bill Clinton's assault victims and a woman that Hillary Clinton didn't represent, but she represented her rapist. Now, to begin with, that was just shots fired for me. If you watch the debate, each of these women rather, were supporting Donald Trump, and each of these women laid out cases why. I will also have a link in the description below where you can check out that press conference yourself. Now, Juanita Broderick said something that was extremely important. She said, Donald Trump may say scary and hurtful things, but Bill Clinton has done hurtful things, and Hillary Clinton has intimidated his victims. Now, that is an extremely powerful statement. And then one of the other women, I think her name was Paula Jones, I believe her name was Paula Jones, said, why don't you ask Bill Clinton? And it shut everyone up. Why don't you ask Hillary Clinton how she tried to shut her up when the media began to say, well, why did you say these things? Why were you saying inappropriate things, Donald Trump? And she immediately attacked very quickly. And I just thought it was just extremely smart, because that is one thing where the Clintons are vulnerable. When you talk about Bill Clinton's past sexual assaults, and you talk about the way Hillary Clinton has intimidated some of his victims. Now, this is all for public consumption. People can look this up. These are not lies being made. These are all true. People really need to understand that Bill Clinton was impeached for what he did. He had an affair with an intern. He has been accused of assaulting multiple women. He paid Paula Jones off, I think, $800,000. It could have been more. I mean, I know it's very crass, and people don't like to talk about it, because if you watch the debate, Anderson Cooper quickly moved from that question quickly. Like, he didn't even bring it up. And aren't these women important? I mean, for Hillary Clinton to champion these women, to say, I am a voice for women, I speak for women, and then you go out and call these people bimbo eruptions. I mean, it just smacks of the highest hypocrisy ever. And every time I tweet about this, like, look, I understand Trump has said inappropriate things, and it's disgusting what he said. But you had a president actually assault women. You had a first lady intimidate these people. Nobody wants to retweet it. People act like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're going to be mad about that, you need to be mad about this. And it's extremely relevant given the context of what's happening in this debate. It's extremely relevant, because you can't say, oh, well, Donald Trump's bad for women. Well, your record is not that great. Both of you have very questionable records. And it needs to be talked about, and it needs to be discussed. And the fact is that the mainstream media is trying to slide it under the table is doing a disservice to American voters. One of the best moments for Hillary Clinton, in my opinion, was when she brought up Khizr Khan, the Gold Star family's son who died in Iraq. Now, her answer would have been great if Donald Trump didn't hit her back with his answer. Now, she brought up the fact that Donald Trump had attacked his family, who was an American Muslim who served in our military, who did die for our country, which I thought was extremely disgraceful for Donald Trump. He should have dropped that issue, but he kept going for days. Now, Hillary Clinton did bring that up, and she was fighting dirty too. She was saying, look, I'm not going to let you attack me. I'm going to bring it up. But Donald Trump hit her just as hard back, and I'm going to show you the video of what he said.
Captain Khan is an American hero, and if I were president at that time, he would be alive today, because unlike her, who voted for the war without knowing what she was doing, I would not have had our people in Iraq. Iraq was a disaster. So he would have been alive today.
I felt extremely bad for Hillary Clinton at this moment. I think she does truly regret her vote in the Iraq war. I think hindsight is 20/20. We can't take back things that we've done once we've made certain decisions. And I think that is something that she will always have to live with, that she did vote for the Iraq War when she was a New York senator. And there is a straw man argument that people keep drawing. Well, Donald Trump supported the Iraq War. There were many Americans who supported the Iraq War when the war first started. But the thing that people keep failing to realize, he was a private citizen. It doesn't matter what he supported as a private citizen. He wasn't in any place of power where he was deciding events that would affect American soldiers' lives. People died because of these decisions that our officials, our politicians made. People ended up dead. Innocent people in the Middle East ended up dead because of what we've done. Now, people can say, oh, well, he supported it. He didn't vote for it. He didn't vote for it. And that's just the matter it was. Hillary Clinton actually voted for it. Her decision cost Americans their lives and cost innocent people their lives. And that's something that everyone who voted for that war, Republican and Democrats, will have to live with. So, one of the questions that were brought up pertain to Hillary Clinton's speeches that was released by WikiLeaks in the Podesta emails. Now, I didn't expect this question, and it was very shocking, her answer, and it was very weak. And I'm going to show you guys that clip and Trump's response, and we're going to talk about it.
Is it okay for politicians to be two-faced? Is it acceptable for a politician to have a private stance on issues? Secretary Clinton, well, your 2 minutes.
Right. As I recall, that was something I said about Abraham Lincoln after having seen the wonderful Steven Spielberg movie called Lincoln. It was a master class watching President Lincoln get the Congress to approve the 13th Amendment. It was principled and it was strategic. And I was making the point that it is hard sometimes to get the Congress to do what you want to do, and you have to keep working at it. And yes, President Lincoln was trying to convince some people. He used some arguments. Convincing other people, he used other arguments. That was a great, I thought, a great display of presidential leadership.
Look, now she's blaming, she got caught in a total lie. Her papers went out to all her friends at the banks, Goldman Sachs and everybody else, and she said things, WikiLeaks, that just came out. And she lied. Now she's blaming the lie on the late, great Abraham Lincoln. That's one that I haven't. Okay, Honest Abe. Honest Abe never lied. That's the good thing. That's the big difference between Abraham Lincoln and you. That's a big, big difference. We're talking about some difference.
I think it was a total and complete cop-out to try to co-opt what Abraham Lincoln had done, and it's completely different times. And this was something that Bernie Sanders had brought up numerous times when he was debating Hillary Clinton in the debates, saying, look, you need to release your speeches that you gave on Wall Street. If they were such great speeches, why did you get paid all this money? And now it turns out that she was saying two very different things to the public, and she was saying two very different things when she was privately speaking to them. Now, I think this will resonate with American voters. The only reason why I say that is because it is not a game out here. People are really hurting, and you can't be trusted. And I hold what Donald Trump says with a grain of salt as well. But if you're saying that you can't relate to people, to the middle class, because you and your husbands made too much, and you're saying that you think there is a bias against successful people in the country, why would anyone think that you're going to put regulations and you're going to stop Wall Street when you're telling them, well, I can't agree with everything you're saying? You know, that doesn't instill much confidence in me to say, okay, let me take a chance and vote for you in November. So I think that was one of her weakest moments in the debate tonight. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about is the Syria question. And for me, foreign policy is a big thing for me. And that is one of the reasons why I'm voting for Jill Stein, because of her foreign policy plans. Now, for me, this question was extremely important because given the situation that the United States and Russia is in, with talks and communications just completely broken down over Syria, and you have two superpowers flying over an international country, God forbid somebody's plane gets shot down, that could lead us into a global scenario. So it's extremely important, and we need someone who is at the head to understand international law, understand what's going on. Now, I think the whole framing of Syria to begin with is very propagandized in our media. There's a lot of misinformation being told and just blatant lies. But we're going to watch the video, and then we're going to talk about both candidates' answers, and then we're going to discuss.
At least 100 of them children. Just days ago, the State Department called for a war crimes investigation of the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad and its ally, Russia, for their bombardment of Aleppo. So this next question comes from social media through Facebook. Diane from Pennsylvania asks, if you were president, what would you do about Syria and the humanitarian crisis in Aleppo? Isn't it a lot like the Holocaust when the U.S. waited too long before we helped? Secretary Clinton, we will begin with your 2 minutes.
Well, the situation in Syria is catastrophic. And every day that goes by, we see the results of the regime by Assad in partnership with the Iranians on the ground, the Russians in the air, bombarding places, in particular Aleppo, where there are hundreds of thousands of people, probably about 250,000 still left. And there is a determined effort by the Russian Air Force to destroy Aleppo in order to eliminate the last of the Syrian rebels who were really holding out against the Assad regime. Russia hasn't paid any attention to ISIS. They're interested in keeping Assad in power. So when I was Secretary of State, advocated, and I advocate today, a no-fly zone and safe zones. We need some leverage with the Russians because they're not going to come to the negotiating table for a diplomatic resolution unless there is some leverage over them. And we have to work more closely with our partners and allies on the ground. But I want to emphasize that what is at stake here is the ambitions and the aggressiveness of Russia. Russia has decided that it's all in Syria, and they've also decided who they want to see become president of the United States, too, and it's not me. I've stood up to Russia. I've taken on Putin and others, and I would do that as president. I think wherever we can cooperate with Russia, that's fine, and I did as Secretary of State. That's how we got a treaty reducing nuclear weapons.
First of all, she was there as Secretary of State with the so-called line in the sand, which...
No, I wasn't. I was gone. I hate to interrupt you,
but you were in contact, excuse me.
At some point, we need to do some fact-checking here.
You were in total contact with the White House, and perhaps... Sadly, Obama probably still listened to you. I don't think he'd be listening to you very much anymore. Obama draws the line in the sand. It was laughed at all over the world what happened. Now, with that being said, she talks tough against Russia. But our nuclear program has fallen way behind, and they've gone wild with their nuclear program. Not good. Our government shouldn't have allowed that to happen. Russia is new in terms of nuclear. We are old, we're tired, we're exhausted in terms of nuclear. A very bad thing. Now, she talks tough. She talks really tough against Putin and against Assad. She talks in favor of the rebels. She doesn't even know who the rebels are. You know, every time we take rebels, whether it's in Iraq or anywhere else, we're arming people. And you know what happens? They end up being worse than the people. Look at what she did in Libya with Gaddafi. Gaddafi's out. It's a mess. And by the way, ISIS has a good chunk of their oil. I'm sure you probably have heard that. It was a disaster. Because the fact is, almost everything she's done in foreign policy has been a mistake, and it's been a disaster. But if you look at Russia, just take a look at Russia, And look at what they did this week, where I agree she wasn't there, but possibly she's consulted. We sign a peace treaty. Everyone's all excited. Well, what Russia did with Assad, and by the way, with Iran, who you made very powerful with the dumbest deal perhaps I've ever seen in the history of deal making, the Iran deal with $150 billion, with the $1.7 billion in cash, which is enough cash to fill up this room. But look at that deal. Iran now and Russia are now against us. So she wants to fight. She wants to fight for rebels. There's only one problem. You don't even know who the rebels are.
Mr. Trump, let me repeat the question. If you were president, what would you do about Syria and the humanitarian crisis in Aleppo? And I want to remind you what your running mate said. He said provocations by Russia need to be met with American strength, and that if Russia continues to be involved in airstrikes along with the Syrian government forces of Assad, the United States of America should be prepared to use military force to strike the military targets of the Assad regime.
Okay. He and I haven't spoken, and I disagree. I disagree.
You disagree with your running mate?
I think we have to knock out ISIS. Right now, Syria is fighting ISIS. We have people that want to fight both at the same time. But Syria is no longer Syria. Syria is Russia, and it's Iran, who she made strong, and Kerry and Obama made into a very powerful nation and a very rich nation very, very quickly, very, very quickly. I believe we have to get ISIS. We have to worry about ISIS before we can get too much more involved.
I think Donald Trump made an excellent point. I think the United States has no clue who we are backing in the Syrian conflict, but I think we just have a habit of backing militants and people who are terrorists, who then turn around and come and attack the United States. You saw this in the 80s when we armed the Mujahideen, which became Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda came and attacked us on 9/11. I mean, we have a track record and a pattern of doing this. We have no idea who we are supporting. The FSA, the people who the United States say we are backing, the so-called Free Syrian Army, beheaded a 12-year-old Palestinian boy in Aleppo. So there's just so much propaganda and false information being put out here. And people really need to understand it is illegal for the United States and its Western allies to be engaging in any attacks and bombings in Syria to begin with. Under international law, we are illegally there. Our Congress did not vote on anything. We do not have permission by the Bashar al-Assad government. Now, whether we like Bashar al-Assad or not, it is completely irrelevant. His government is the legitimate government of that country. Syrian Arab Army is the only legitimate fighting force in that country. We should not be arming rebels. We should not be giving advanced military equipment to people who are trying to overthrow a government. I mean, God forbid you see a black flag raised over Damascus. What the hell is the United States going to say? We've seen how this played out. Libya is a perfect example of why you should not be backing militants. You have two rival governments fighting for power in Libya, one recognized by the UN, one that is not. You have ISIS, which has taken over some of the oil fields and are fighting with one of the governments to try to wrestle that back in Libya. That is solely on Hillary Clinton, President Obama, and our Western allies for doing that. That is no one else. And if that is not an example of what will happen if we let Hillary Clinton get into power, people really need to wake up as to what's going on here. If this woman happens to get into power, do you realize what a no-fly zone would mean? If you have our general saying a no-fly zone would directly lead to a conflict with Russia, you're talking about a war. You're talking about going to war with a nuclear-armed country. This is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. This is not some Middle Eastern country. This is a nuclear-armed country with the second most powerful military in the world who has just as much nuclear weapons as we do. So people really need to think carefully when they're looking at this. The last moment that we're going to be talking about is when Donald Trump brought up the fact of Hillary Clinton's emails. Now, I think this is a weak point for her. This is always where she is going to have trouble to try to defend her actions, because there are people who are in the Democratic Party who do believe that she mishandled classified information, who do believe that she endangered our nation's cybersecurity with her actions. So this is one of the best moments of the debate, in my opinion. This is when he just solidified his win for me, in my mind. And I'm going to show you guys the clip right now.
Can fact check him in real time. Last time at the first debate, we had millions of people fact checking, so I expect we'll have millions more fact checking because, you know, it's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
We want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time.
I think that was the moment for me where I seriously said, okay, he came here to win. He's not messing around. I think many people who are still Bernie supporters, myself included, really and truly believe that Hillary Clinton would be indicted with the emails, because there's no way that she should have got off. There are people who, as I said, who in the party believe she should have been indicted, or some form of criminal charges should have been brought up, because if this was anyone else, they would have been arrested, they would have been charged, they would have been sent to jail. I mean, what it showed with the Attorney General not pressing charges, with the FBI basically saying she did everything under the book, but they couldn't find intent to prosecute her, was basically that there was a two-tier justice system, one for the rich and powerful and one for the average American citizen. And I think that when people look at that, they will always see that this woman got away and is above the law. So yeah, that's it for me. That's it for this video. I think Donald Trump hands down won the debate. I think there is no question about this. I think he was strong. He was more calm and cool and collected, though, as I said in the beginning of the video, the debate was truly a shit show of epic proportions. There was just a lot of mudslinging, but overall, I still think he came out on top in this. I am the Millennial Revolt. Thank you guys so much for watching, and you have a great day. Bye.